You're listening to Bio Talk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the BioHealth Capital Region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in biohealth.
My guest today is Tami Howie, who is the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. Tami, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rich.
So let's start with some basic questions because a lot of these listeners don't even know what the Maryland Tech Council is or how Tami Howie got connected to it. So let's talk a little bit about your background, how you got involved with the Maryland Tech Council.
I have been a tech lawyer for 25 years. So I came out of law school in the late 90s and started representing tech companies from day one. My very first client was Ray Ozzie, the inventor of Lotus Notes, and it was in a deal with Microsoft's Steve Ballmer, and I absolutely fell in love with the industry. And over the last 20 years have done anything from representing two guys in a garage all the way up through public offerings. I had the pleasure to represent 70% of my practice was company side and 30% was the investor side. So I feel like I really got a good insight into what companies need and how to grow, and also how the investors look at companies and what they need for them in order to invest in their companies. May not seem like a natural transition to the tech council world, but I always served on the boards of all the tech councils around the region. I served as outside counsel to the Mid-Atlantic Venture Association. I was heads of some committees at Northern Virginia Tech Council, and actually was the head of the Committee for Women in Bio right here at what used to be the Tech Council of Maryland. So in December of 2015, I was asked to take over the East Coast Tech Council, which was called the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council. And a month later, I started merging together, because I don't think I could stop being a lawyer, merging together the two largest tech councils, which was Chesapeake Regional Tech Council and the Tech Council of Maryland. And here I sit today, running a 600-plus bio and tech company organization and loving it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know there's been a long history with the Tech Council of Maryland, going through many different iterations. And hopefully this time, with the merger of the two organizations, there's going to be a much more clearer mission for the members, and they will have a greater understanding of what the goals are for the Tech Council. So how do you envision this merger working, and what is the difference with this merger from the past ways the Tech Council of Maryland has operated?
Well, I think the tech association world has changed drastically since the Tech Council of Maryland and the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council were created. Back in the early to mid-90s, tech councils were created to help techies and biotech people that were not very good at socializing get together and actually do business. And as most of you know today, there's a million events now. So companies are doing the same thing, and every business in the world and a million different associations are all doing that. And so the needs of the tech company for association has changed drastically. And I think that you'll see that aligned with our business plan that we have come together to create. Our board has signed off on what they really need. So what we have done different is, when I first got involved, we needed events in order to connect people. We've decided that there's three main areas that we need as an association to satisfy our companies, and it is connecting, which we do very well. We've been doing it for over 20 years. Educating, which is a newer activity of the Tech Council, which is educating companies on how to become better companies, educating companies on how to secure more talented workforce, and also advocating, which is one voice in Annapolis. And I think that's the big difference for the merger, is that we are the one voice across the state that is the advocate for better laws and regulations and working conditions for bio and tech companies in the region.
And how do you balance that between technology and bio? There are some similarities, but the industries are really different. One's much more highly regulated. The other, you could actually develop an app or a software application in your garage. You could be in the market within 30 days. The other industry, sometimes it's going to take 10, 15 years and $1 billion to get to market. So what's the challenge in having both of those associated with the Maryland Tech Council?
The positives is that they're actually each other's customers. So every biotech company in the region needs to have some technology. They need social media. They need to have cybersecurity. So right after the merger, we saw a huge influx of deals that were being done between our members, because for the first time for many of our biotech executives, they were meeting a lot of the cyber solutions that were out there. The challenge, as you mentioned, is different money sources for our companies are available. Obviously, you need patient capital for biotech companies, and you can get kind of quicker capital, people that want to get out in 5 years for our tech community. So some events we do have to hold separate. So we are structured kind of a little complicated. I'd like to simplify it. That's one of my goals. But right now we have a parent company, and in that parent company we have a bio board and a tech board. And each of those are made up of the CEOs of all of our bio and tech companies. And they each get a direction that they really want to go with the companies in the organization. And then they come together and figure out how we can satisfy that with our organization. So I think we do have a representative of both on the boards.
Tami, something I've been thinking about, which I'm sure you get asked, is I've been here only less than 6 years, and there's been, I think, 5 different CEOs of the Tech Council. What do you think you can attribute that turnover to, and what is it that's going to change now to where you're going to bring a lot more stability to the Tech Council and continuity, which is very important when you're trying to build an ecosystem both around innovation and entrepreneurship?
Well, I had the same question. As I said, I was running the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council and started to merge with the Tech Council of Maryland. And it was one of my concerns. So being a lawyer, I did my due diligence, and I went out to not every single, but most of the prior CEOs of the Tech Council and asked them why they moved, what they thought the problems were, and what I could do to fix those problems. And everybody had a different reason for leaving, some personal, some, needed to move areas or decided to go in a different direction. And everyone had a different reason for why they think that maybe they weren't the best fit for it and what they think should be going forward. But the one thing that resonated with me is that most people underestimated the job. Most people thought that, this will be a part-time job for me. I've run other companies. I've done other things. This is just a small little association, and I'm going to be able to do this and, go 3 days a week biking or, travel wherever. And I was a partner at the largest law firm in the world before this and felt like I worked a ton and did billion-dollar deals and was shocked at how hard this job is. Without a doubt, this is the hardest job I've ever had, because not only are you running an organization, making sure that it's financially viable, fundraising, as you know, that takes a lot, but you also are the voice of the companies. And I think that if you underestimate that it takes any less than 20 hours a day to do it, then you're going to fail at the job and you're going to get burnt out and you're not going to be able to stay. So I think that you need somebody who understands that it takes a lot more than just a couple hours a day. I think you need someone who's passionate about it. My entire career, all I've done is tech and biotech companies. I'm passionate by it. I believe that technology moves the world. I have 6 children, 3 stepchildren and 3 of my own, and really care that we are the best out there for these things. So I think that, a combination of work, just sheer working it, and the passion for it really makes a difference.
And then also you have a foundation.
Yes, we have a foundation that's been a little dormant over the last few years, I think just because of the complication of it. But being a lawyer, of course, I had to re-up our foundation. And right now we have 2 missions in our foundation. One of them is workforce development. So we're raising money in that foundation to have internships that are paid. A lot of our smaller companies can't provide paid internships for students. So they feel like they're not getting the talented interns and apprentices that they need. So December 7th, not to give a commercial here, but we have a black and white affair up at the Horseshoe Casino in Baltimore, where part of the proceeds are going to go towards scholarships for students that want to work for small tech and biotech companies. So that's one of the things in our foundation. The other piece of our foundation raises money for mentorship. We have a really amazing program called Venture Mentoring Service, and we just finished our first year of doing it, and we had 20 companies in the program, and we had 51 trained mentors. Now, Rich, I always thought I was a fantastic mentor. I was very present for the companies. I connected them to money. I connected them to deals. And then I went through the system for our venture mentor platform, and it's a curriculum we licensed from MIT. And you have to go through this rigorous training in order to know what to do. And I realized I have been a terrible mentor. So we're really excited to start our second year with this and hopefully double the number of companies that we mentor.
So as you mentioned that, what have you learned to apply differently as a mentor today versus the way you were acting as a mentor before, now that you've gone through this formal training?
So before, I thought just being available and answering questions and challenging them a tad bit was really important. But once I got involved with the venture mentoring program, I realized that each company needs to have a minimum of 4 mentors. They need to have them in different parts. And we can't just give them some advice and say, go. It almost needs to be a 2-year teaching program where we give them metrics, hold them accountable, almost like they're students in college. And I had never really held them accountable. I was more of a cheerleader and realize that sometimes almost being a parent to these companies is really needed.
And what happens if a mentoring relationship isn't working? Is there a way to get out of that so that you can find the appropriate mentor?
Yes, we have a person dedicated to the venture mentoring platform, and you can go to that person or the managing committee and say, this really isn't working out. And we have 51 mentors for 20 companies, so plenty of availability. And if you need something special, then we will seek out that mentor. I wish I could say that they want me just because I'm the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. The reason they sought me out is because I have legal background, so I can give that also.
Also, I think the foundation has a bus that's involved in STEM education for all of our elementary and high school students. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. So it's an affiliate company of ours. It actually comes under our umbrella, and it's run by colleague Brian Gaines, who is the CEO of that organization. And it is absolutely spectacular. So they have really done a great job of not just one bus, but 2. They have a bio bus and a tech bus that goes around the state and goes to all of the elementary school, middle school, and high schools across the state. And what it really does is it allows education for students that might not have STEM programs in their counties. And it has really helped reach out to rural areas or lower income areas that may not get that access to technology and biotechnology.
That's excellent. I think it's a very unique program that's differentiated in this region, which other regions don't have right now.
Right. And it's great. And it's mobile, so that there's no longer transportation. And it's really great to be able to reach all different types of people.
As you know, as a practicing association manager now, an economic development professional after a year.
Right. Which means I know nothing. But
it basically takes a private-public partnership to get all of the different constituents within a region engaged. So we have academia, we have industry, we have local, state, federal government, we have foundations, we have NGOs. How have you found this region for getting the partnerships that are necessary to build this ecosystem into one of the top ecosystems in the country for innovation and entrepreneurship?
I will be honest. When I was a lawyer, I always viewed Maryland as very separate. So I was in Northern Virginia and DC, and that's where my practice was. I spent a ton of time out in Silicon Valley and Chicago. And my opinion as an outsider was that it was very disconnected and that they didn't work together. So I was expecting that when I came and took over in the end of 2015. And much to my surprise, they are pretty good at coordinating among each other. I think this may be a trend that we're seeing. There's been a turnover in leadership in the last 5 years. I think at the government level, at the heads of all the organizations that are around here. And I think that there's a big push, both by the people that are in those positions and also by the money that is sent to support them, to really start to work together and really realize that it's not us against each other, but really we're putting a message out to the rest of the country and the world of what Maryland has here in the state.
So you think we're making some progress on breaking down the barriers and the silos that have existed here for such a long time? Because in your business and my business, it takes partners and sponsors to fund our organizations, whether they're members or they're sponsors of BioHealth Innovation. Everybody has to dial for dollars all the time. You and I are out raising money for our organizations all the time, and sometimes we have to go to the same people. Do you believe that there's a message that is evolving now that's clearer for the stakeholders to understand how they can engage with each of these individual organizations without having duplicity where everybody's stepping over each other?
I still think that some people step over each other, and I think that it is definitely getting better. I think really what is helping is that people are realizing where their lane is. So if you're an incubator, then you incubate companies. And if you're an association, we don't need to come in and create an incubator. What we need to do is help that incubator become more successful and fill in the gaps where there is a need. And I think that when I first came in, I felt like a lot of what we were doing was duplicative of what other people were doing. And the team that I have, we sat down and really thought through what is out there. And if somebody else is doing it, we asked to join as opposed to compete with. And if somebody isn't doing it, then we look to see if we could actually help solve that problem. And I think that that's really helping. But unfortunately, that is always either tied to money and how, you'll get money if you play nice in the sandbox, or individual personalities. And I have to be honest, if I've gone to anybody and said, hey, looks like we're doing the same event, can we do it together? Or why don't you take the lead on this and then you help me over here on a separate training for the companies? People have been very receptive to that.
I think it's a paradigm shift.
Right.
And really, we're probably early in that shift right now because, as you mentioned, we've had lots of leaders change within this ecosystem. We've had many secretaries of commerce, many economic development directors, many CEOs of the Tech Council, many CEOs of TEDCO.
Right.
Different people who are involved in many different organizations. So I think hopefully we're getting a group of CEOs now with all of these organizations, come from different disciplines, understand the value of partnership, and might create more stability for this region.
Yes, I am very excited with the leadership of Maryland right now. There's a number of key people that are in the ecosystem who have joined and been here less than a year that are just moving the needle. George Davis at TEDCO, he is a great addition to the ecosystem. Rich, you're great to work with. Anytime I come to you to support something, you're 100% behind me. And incubators, there's a number of them that are out there and really pushing to make it easier for companies to succeed.
And then you mentioned the word Maryland because it's in your name, Maryland Tech Council.
Right.
But really, states or regions or cities or counties will never be successful unless they partner with the people that are on their border.
Right.
We do have tremendous assets.
Yes.
And a lot of people know what they are. We're very strong in the defense and the cyber industries, more in Northern Virginia, in the software area, very strong in the bio industry here. We have some of the greatest research institutions in the world located within our region. But we also have some gaps we still have to work on. Where would you say are the greatest gaps that we have that we need to address as an association, as an organization that's trying to help our entrepreneurs and innovators be successful?
So obviously money is the first one I think of because I was a venture lawyer and public offering lawyer, and I don't think there's enough money being put to use in Maryland. Now, back up, I actually think we have the most money of any state in the country to put to use, but unfortunately we have 106,000 millionaires, and very few of them are actually putting some of their personal wealth into companies. So I think angel investing is a really great area that we could make a huge impact to help with that gap financing from the $100,000 to $2 million, where most of my companies have trouble, where we lose a lot of companies because Boston and California are offering to fill that gap. I think the state is working hard on that. I think TEDCO and George Davis under the new leadership is focused in on that. But I definitely think there's a huge gap. I also think seasoned management is a problem here. Unfortunately, our inheritance laws makes someone, as a lawyer, I know this because it used to happen all the time. Before you close a deal, you need to make sure you're resident somewhere other than Maryland so you don't get hit with nasty inheritance tax. So I think we're losing a lot of the seasoned executives because when they close a deal, they have to go spend 6 months and a day in Florida, and then they tend to invest in and work in companies there.
Do you think that's a reality or a perception? Because generally, there are more successful companies than people are aware of in both the bio and the tech area. But we're a very conservative region. I mean, we're very government focused. There's this risk of not failing that's here. Academic and federal government employees are not that risk oriented, but we've had some very good success stories in both of the industries. We just don't seem to be very promotional or marketing oriented in this region as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think there's a shortage of seasoned management, though. I think that if you go into other hub areas for innovation, you have a huge list of people. And most of it is because this is a newer area. We don't have quite the years, and people haven't totally finished with their current business. And some are moving away to areas that are
So you're talking about serial entrepreneurs.
We've
had some successful businesses, but not people who have done it many times over.
I will tell you that when you have an idea, finding someone that can actually jump in that's a seasoned entrepreneur and run with it is a little more difficult than you have in Boston or Silicon Valley. And I think, part of it is tax incentives. Part of it is just because that's not where they grew up. And, I think that as we get older as an innovation hub, we will see more and more exited entrepreneurs that are willing to jump in and really help grow those companies. I think another shortage that we have is our products here. We have a phenomenon that's just unbelievable, that we have these great federal institutions that help us spin out ideas, but unfortunately they have the government contractor mindset. So for business, it's great because we have a consistent customer in the government, but in between my law and actually running this organization, I ran a government contractor, and the mentality is people in seats. You get paid for services. And even if you use a product in order to fulfill that contract that you have, you don't commercialize that. So I do think we have some work to do in commercializing products. We have them. We're just not great at putting them out in the market.
Well, we're one of the research capitals of the world, but we're not one of the commercialization capitals.
Right.
And I think some of that relates to an area that we've been focused on as a result of the Life Science Advisory Board, and that's the conflict of interest policies that exist within the NIH,
right,
which discourage investors or industry to try to work with them because of how difficult it is to license a product or to get the support of a scientist who developed the technology in one of those institutes.
Right. Right. Sounds like the lawyers are getting in the way.
I'd say the lawyers and bureaucracy is getting in the way of what we have the ability to work with here. Now that you've been here for how long?
So I've been at the Maryland Tech Council for 8 months.
8 months, okay.
Yes.
So how would you look at the first 8 months and the short-term goals you had established? And what do you see as your 3 to 5 year goals for the Tech Council?
Well, I like to get things done now because I was a deal lawyer, and back then I would only get paid if I get a deal done. So I'm not moving fast enough, but that's my personality. So even if I grew the membership by 200%, I would be sitting here telling you I didn't move it fast enough. Actually, with my team and my board, I'm really happy with where we are. We had the short-term goal of, making sure the integration of the two organizations was solid, making sure the board worked well together, and to make sure that we got a clear strategic plan and a clear budget for how to implement that strategic plan. And we've accomplished all of that over the 8 months, which I was feeling like was a long time to get done, but just went to a nonprofit CEO training and heard that I am knocking the cover off the ball by getting a merger and a strategic plan done in 8 months. So I'm very happy about that. In the future, obviously, we would like for every biotech and tech organization to be associated with our association, and we want them to come here not because we've asked, but because they feel like that there's true value. So if I could say my 3 to 5 year plan would be to continue to find what companies need and bring value to them, to really bring probably 100% more of the funding sources that are out there. I would like to double that in the next 3 to 5 years and really help companies get all of that off the ground. As you know, I would love to have a venture fund that's commercial based and company based, and that's a goal of mine in 3 to 5 years. And I really want to.
That's too long.
Oh, that's like tomorrow.
But it's got to be done sooner than that.
Right, agree with that. And then I would really like to make sure that we have a solid workforce here. So when companies come here, they have all that they need. Now, we have amazing education facilities here, top of the country. University of Maryland has the most computer science graduates of any university in the country. We have Johns Hopkins, which I don't think I need to say a word about because everybody knows how great.
Largest research institution in the world.
Right. We have the best community colleges, which I didn't know until I got into this job. Just amazing, and amazing resources there. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose those students and we actually have great jobs for them, and that we have a pool of workforce here that really makes companies stay here.
So when I'm listening to you, you want to be able to get greater membership.
Yes.
Get greater sponsorship. In order to do that, I think a transition probably will have to occur from being activity-driven to outcomes-driven. So how do you transition a membership organization, which has a very traditional model around the United States and the world, from something that is focused on activities to real outcomes?
I guess I've always been judged on outcomes. So in my head, I probably already am doing that outcome-driven, because as a law firm, you get paid every year based on the outcomes that you have. So I think the first thing is to listen. It's hard to get judged on outcomes when you don't know what your companies want from it. So we've been going around over the last 8 months and asking our companies, what is it that you really need from us? And that's how we came up with the things that were very important to us. And we, in our strategic plan, we actually have a quarterly review of how we're doing versus budget versus our goals. And so I think that we're moving into that direction and really want a 360 review from our members saying, are we doing what you need from us? So I think really just hearing from our members to make sure that we're hitting all the goals that they want us to hit.
This has been a great conversation with the 8-month-old CEO of the Maryland Tech Council, who's going to reinvigorate the tech and bio industries for its members here in the Maryland region. So Tami Howie, thank you very much for being on BioTalk. Look forward to working with you as we both try to achieve goals together. And as a matter of fact, following this interview we're doing today, we're going to talk about how do we create a major investor conference in the BioHealth Capital Region, which doesn't exist today.
And we're looking forward to that. So stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.